Hello everyone, my name is Eric Glauner, and this is going to be the YouTube recording of the Matrix CMA webinar. In this webinar, I want to tell you how you might prepare for a listing presentation by researching the subject property, thereby creating a search that is what we call an apples to apples comparison. For instance, I don't want to compare a single family home in Alpharetta to a condo in Midtown, right? So we definitely want to make sure that our comps look as much as possible like our subject property. We're going to talk about a few different CMAs. We're going to hit up the quick CMA, and then we'll talk about the full CMA wizard for a complete presentation. And along the way, we're going to talk about creating a cover sheet for that particular CMA presentation, how to email it, manage it, meaning edit it, and also talk a little bit about contacts as well, of course, because they're going to be the ones that you want to email that CMA to. So I'm going to go ahead and flip over to my live login here. I'm already in Matrix. Okay, so let's kind of take that in order. All right, so the first bullet point on that slide was talking about researching the subject property. Now, I'm going to show you, as I mentioned, a few ways that you can accomplish a CMA in the Matrix system. And the way I always like to teach this when I'm in the classroom is to say that based on what you might know about the subject property and the situation that you're in might lead you to a different type of CMA report than another. Okay? So, for instance, just kind of working smallest to most involved. Let's just say that you're at a party one day and you're having an okay time. It's not the world's most bang-up party, okay? And you're making small talk with somebody who says, hey, I'm thinking about selling my home. Great, this party got a lot better all of a sudden. Tell me a little bit about your house. What's the address? Maybe a little bit of hint at the square footage, how many beds and baths you got, right? I don't want to give them the third degree. I don't want to scare them away. I just want to get the basics, okay? So armed with just that little bit of information, somebody might tell me their address, that kind of information. So what I could do, and I have several ways of doing this. I want to start off by telling you that there's no real right or wrong way to do this. You're going to find your own groove in how you find comps and how you do things, and that's great. Everybody's their own individual. If we all made a CMA the same exact way, why would we even need each other in the business, right? We would all have the same opinion. There would be no such thing as a second opinion kind of thing. So we're all going to have our own unique ways. So what I'm saying is, if I have just the very basics of someone's information about their subject property, about their home, then here's what I might do. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to research the subject property. All right. Now, in this situation where I'm just at a party, there's not a whole lot of research that I could do. I might just have my phone with me. I don't necessarily want to lock myself in a bathroom for an hour and a half making a CMA presentation at a party. So I just want some really quick information. Somebody told me, for instance, what neighborhood they lived in. Okay, what's the subdivision? So what I could do is I could hover over search, right? I could log into my phone, maybe find a quiet corner of the party, hover over search, go to, for instance, in this case, I'm going to go to residential, okay? Because I'm going to assume that my homeowner is a single family home. You might ask them, of course, what they are. Maybe they're in a condo, but in this example, I'm going to go ahead and use a single family home. For my kind of CMA-ish presentation style, I want to see actives, I want to see solds, right? I'll talk more about what kind of statuses you might put on a CMA later. But for right now, I'm going to do active and closed. And this person has told me that they are in the Burnwick subdivision, Byrwick Wyck, very Welsh spelling there. Burnwick. What I can see in the lower left corner of my screen right now is that I only have 5 matches right now of active properties and things that have sold over the last 6 months, right? That 0-180 in the box, 180 days back. So 6 months of solds and 5 actives. If I go to the results, just for this particular subdivision, I can see the numbers here, and here's the first. I hesitate to call it a CMA. It's not a true CMA, but when I hit it, you're going to see the information here, and I think you'll understand why I talk about this. When I come to the results, right, of this very simple search, all I did was what's happening in this very subdivision. When I go to results, I have stats in the bar down below. It's pretty much the only button, aside from going back to my criteria, that's lit up down here. So I'm going to go to stats. I'm going to choose tabular, okay? Because in my tables, in my tabular view, what I have here is the one active property right now on the market in that subdivision is $680,000. The average closed price is $742,000. So we're actually almost $100,000 over that as far as solds go. Maybe this person's not in a nice enough house comparatively, or they're just lowballing it so that they can get a bidding war going, right? There's different pricing strategies involved here. But what I'm getting at is, here in just 2 minutes worth of work, of course I've been talking longer than that because I'm presenting how to do this, but here in just 2 minutes worth of work, I can go back to this person and say, it looks like you have one competitor on the market right now in your subdivision who's listing for $680,000. But looking at the last 6 months of solds in your subdivision, the average sale price, right? So I go down the sale price column, average line here, $742,250. Right? And the reason I always like to present this table view first, so do you see why I call this, or why I teach this at the same time as a CMA? Because what you're going to see on a CMA is the median, minimum, maximum, average costs associated with the listings that you're pulling, right? And that's what we're seeing here. So that's why I think it kind of applies. And here's why I put this in. So getting back to my scenario, if I'm at that party and somebody tells me like, hey, look, I'm thinking about selling my home, and I start getting excited about that, now after 2 minutes worth of work, I can return to this person and say, here's what's going on in your neighborhood right now. And I would imagine that one of 3 responses will be given back to you by this person that you're trying to make a contact with at the party. 1, they're going to say, that's amazing. It took you like 2 minutes to figure out what's going on in my neck of the woods. That's great. Give me your card. I'll call you in the morning, right? Great. Awesome. Party just got a lot better. The second possible response I would tell you is probably somebody might say something like, oh, 742, huh? That's really good information. I can't really stomach that right now. I just did a lot of renovations. I'm still in it for about a $820,000 mortgage. You know, whatever the case may be, right? You get kind of this middle ground response, because they might say to you, while I can't tolerate this right now, give me your card. Let's talk in the spring when I've paid down some of that mortgage, when I've put in some improvements, you know, whatever the case may be, right? It's still a potential lead, just not today. The third possible response, I would argue, is that somebody might say, you know what, I'm not having a great time at this party either. I'm just making small talk. I'm sorry, I'm not really ready right now to list my home. So you're out 2 minutes worth of work rather than going home and working up a 4-hour CMA presentation for this purpose, for this person, only to hear after 4 hours worth of work that they're not really in the mood to sell their home, right? So this little market analysis, or I might call it a neighborhood activity report, as that's how I approach it, right? We just did a neighborhood activity type style report. This is interesting. Okay, and I think that this is a good little way to go fishing, so to speak, without putting too much effort and too much of your day into just kind of potential. All right, so you can print this out down at the bottom. It reminds you of the criteria you used to get to these results, right? So you have one little option down here just to print it. Otherwise, you can click back and kind of off you go. All right, so let's work. I'm just going to kind of hit back to the Home tab in Matrix just to kind of cleanse my palette, so to speak. I don't obviously need to go there to make the program do what I want it to do, but just to kind of pause in our brain. Let's take it a step further now, okay? Let's say that scenario played out as well as it could. That person said, hey, that's really great information. I'm excited about that. Let's start working together, right? So now is when I might leave that party, go home and do some further research, right? I gave him one of my cards, obviously, and then maybe on the back of one of my other cards or on a notepad that I might keep with me or in my phone, whatever the case may be, I wrote down some more basic information about their home. Rough idea of the square footage, the address, bedroom, bathroom count, just some kind of, basics. Okay. So with the basics, especially that address, now I know how I can research this a little further. It's great that I know what's going on in the neighborhood, but how indicative of the neighborhood is my potential seller's home, right? It could be a little different. I need to get a better idea of what's going on in a true CMA. So now that I'm home, now let's talk about researching your subject property proper. Okay, because like I said, we want to just ask a few questions at the party. We didn't want to turn him away or her away just by getting too much up into their business right at the onset. So now that I'm home and I have a little bit more information because I've hooked them, so to speak, let's talk about finding out as much about the subject property as possible. So I'm going to advise in my own personal belief, again, you might get other people that have different opinions, but in my personal view, the way I teach this, I always say, research your subject property in 3 places. All right, and I'll give you the reasons why and why I put them in the order that I do. The first place that I would recommend that you research your subject property is go out to the county tax assessor's website. Just go to google.com, type in, DeKalb County Tax Assessor, Fulton County Tax Assessor, whatever the case may be, and look up your potential client's data there, okay? Because if the client tells you that, I have a European-style 7-bedroom mansion, but the tax record shows that you're supposed to be pulling up to a 3-bedroom bungalow, whoa, hang on, what happened here? Right? Because the tax record, the reason I say go there first is that's straight from the horse's mouth. That's what the taxes are based on. That's the official square footage of the home, right? You definitely want to see what's on the tax record. Now, if the tax record doesn't match what the homeowner is telling you, honestly, that's a fight between the homeowner and the county. If you want to wade into the middle of that battle, that's up to you. But, it's really between the two of them. So that's why I say go there first. It's the official record. The second place I would recommend that you go, and I'm not going there in case you're wondering, why isn't his screen moving? I'm not going to the different websites because one of you listening to me on this YouTube video might be up in Rabun County, and I'm talking about DeKalb and Fulton, and you're like, I don't give a whit about the Atlanta subdivisions and counties and what happened. But anyway, they're just different. So just go out there. The second place that I would recommend that you go is Realist. I'm also not going to demonstrate Realist because is this a Realist YouTube video? No, it's a Matrix YouTube video. But the reason I would say go to Realist second is because when you eventually do list that property, and I hope that you do, the tax record is going to pull from Realist. So really all you're doing during the second step here of the research is to make sure that the Realist record matches the county record. If it doesn't, then call support, get them involved, get that taken care of, because when you do finally list the listing, or the property, I guess I should say, when you list that property, the listing data is going to be pulled from Realist. So you definitely want that correct. Okay, so you're just kind of putting your ducks in a row while we're thinking about tax records and proper data on our listing. The third and final place that I would recommend you research your subject property is in Matrix. So here, since this is Matrix video, let's pick it up here. So I'm going to put in my subject property address. Now this is just a random one that I picked this morning. So if any of you watching the YouTube video know this property or whatever, I'm not picking it for any reason. It was just totally random this morning. So it's 1144 Ives. Notice that I did put the asterisk after the word Ives. If you're not sure what the asterisk does, I would recommend the Matrix Basics class. All right, it's just a wildcard search, meaning that I'm going to pull in anything after the word Ives that matches with the 1144. So 1144 Ives, I'm going to click search, and there we go. It's 1144 Ives Court Northeast in my Burnwick subdivision. All right, this is a pretty old listing. It was from 10 years ago. Let me write down the FMLS number. Okay. And I'm going to write down that FMLS number so that I can use it later. All right. So the reason I say go into Matrix last of the three places is because sometimes I might not find the subject property. If it's not been listed since January 2007, chances are it's not in our system. That's how far back our system goes, January 2007. So if you've got a homeowner that's been in that home for 40 years, it's a generational family home, something like that, you're not going to find it here. So for that reason, I say make it last. And the only other reason it's going to be is, like I said, I wrote down that FMLS number for a shortcut. That's the only reason you're coming in here. For a CMA that I'm going to do in a little while, it'll provide me a shortcut. So what I can do anyway here is I can take a look. Okay, it's a 5-bedroom, 4-bath home. It's a Tudor style. We've got a certain amount of square footage here, beds, baths. Maybe you're looking at the high school, middle school, whatever you're kind of trying to glean here, you can pick out. So I'm just going to kind of keep it basic. I'm going to write down bedrooms, year built, square footage, baths, subdivision, right? You're going to come up with your own features that you're looking for. Okay, so remember that at this point, I'm going to go ahead and go back home. So we've kind of researched our subject property. Remember at this point, our scenario. So I'm just returning from the party. I've got a little bit more basic information about the house, enough to get me started looking at the tax records and all that kind of stuff. So now I still haven't been to the subject property itself. I haven't been to the listing appointment yet. Okay. But maybe I want to impress upon my potential client still at this point, because we don't have a contract probably at the party. But I still want to impress upon that person that I'm researching, I'm working for them, I'm a hardworking agent. I'm looking at things now that might look more like their subject property. Okay, because again, just because it's in the same subdivision doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be the same quality, it was built in the same phase, it's the same kind of thing, because nowadays you've got subdivisions that are kind of mixed use, right? Sometimes you'll have a subdivision with condos and townhomes and single family homes in it, right? So at this point, let's go ahead and start actually refining our search. So one more time, I'm going to hover over search. I want to find comps that are now a little more exact. I'm not just doing a neighborhood activity report. So I'm going to hover over search. Once more, choose residential. Okay, so over on the left, I'm going to keep the check mark next to residential detached, right? I want to make sure that I'm comparing single family homes. And personally, I always start with my map portion of my search, because pretty much a calling card, when I think CMA, I think I'm going to need to do a geographic search, because once again, as I mentioned at the beginning, I don't want to compare an Alpharetta property to a property over in Powder Springs, right? So I want to go to the map. For this purpose, I'm going to go ahead and choose the map tab in the upper right corner of my search screen. And I do this because now right below that map tab is a field that says jump to address. So I'm going to go ahead, click in that field, and start typing in my subject property address, 1144 Ives Court, and I'm just going to put in Atlanta. Press enter. There it is. It's Ives Court. Okay. Now, I mentioned and demonstrated just now that I typed in 1144 Ives Court, Atlanta. I didn't worry about the Northeast. I didn't worry about the zip code and the state. All right. The reason I put in the Atlanta part was because that box, that jump to address field, is tied just to Google Maps in general. If I had just typed 1144 Ives Court and pressed enter, there could be an 1144 Ives Court up in Minnesota somewhere, and all of a sudden I'm looking at Minnesota in my map. So just do a Atlanta to give Google Maps the rough idea that, hey, we need to be looking over in Georgia. Right? Now you can put in Chamblee or, whatever, Macon, wherever you might be. Okay. But I just did that. All right, so I'm just kind of scrolling out a little bit. I'm using my mouse wheel. I know that you didn't really see anything happen there, but my map was zooming out. So I was using my mouse wheel on my mouse. Otherwise, of course, I could have used the minus sign in the upper right corner of the map to zoom out. All right, and the reason I'm doing that, now I'm going to click and drag that down so that this red pin is kind of in the center of my map. Okay. The reason I zoom out and I reposition my red pin to be in the center is because now I want to draw a shape on the map to constrain my results, right? A lot of agents will think around 1 mile out. Sometimes, depending on where you're at and what time of year maybe that you're in, you might want to go further out, right? So again, I'm kind of in the greater Atlanta area here, but if I was looking at properties up in perhaps Dawsonville, where people have larger plots of land, there's some horse farms, there's some farms, maybe I need to go out 2 miles to get a good representation of my neighbors, right? So I'll talk more about that in a minute. But essentially, again, going back here, I zoomed out so that I could see roughly a mile or so out. I want to be able to see the full area of where I'm going to drop my shape. So how I'm going to draw my shape, now that I've kind of identified my subject property, that's where this red pin is, and I've zoomed out so that I can see an appropriate amount of space around it, I'm going to go ahead and keep it simple. I'm going to click on the Draw Radius button. It's that circle out to the left of where I typed in my subject property address. So when I click on it, it becomes yellow, letting me know that it's active. Now, this is key. Notice that I've got some green pins all over. Again, and I have my red pin in the center, signifying my subject property. All of those pins you want to avoid. If I were to click on a pin, instead of dropping the center of my circle, which is what's going to happen when I eventually do click here in just a moment, it's going to think I want more information about the pin that I clicked on. So you want to avoid the pins. So notice that there's plenty of blank space kind of down here around the lower right portion of my red pin. So I'm going to just kind of click a little bit southeast of my pin and then drag out my circle. Now I can't move my mouse to demonstrate this, but if you notice that black line going directly out from where I clicked to the edge of the circle, halfway through that black line, I see that I'm currently out 1.14 miles. That's my radius. All right. So again, you can make your own decision on how far out you want to be. Typically, agents, I think, will look around 1 mile as their preferred pitch, but it's up to you wherever you want to put it. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm right at 1.15. I'm going to let go of my mouse, and now my circle is set. Notice that when I let go of that mouse button, all of the results, if you recall, there were some all over, especially over on this side of the map, they're gone now, right? Because my circle now must contain only my matches. No matches outside of the circle will be considered. Before I jump back to my criteria here, I do want to just show you, in case you accidentally set your circle wrong. Maybe your hand slipped, you let go of the mouse button too fast. You've got a tiny little circle, maybe that looks like that, right? And you've got 0 matches. What in the world? So what I want you to see is that you can always recalibrate your circle. So when you're kind of hovering over the edge, you can click and drag it out. You'll know that you're hovering over the edge because if you can see, I'll move my cursor kind of slowly on the right side of the circle. When you're hovering over the edge of the circle, your pointer becomes a single index finger, whereas if I'm somewhere else, now it's a grabby hand, right? If I'm in here, it's a grabby hand. If I'm over here, it's a grabby hand. But if I'm on the edge, it's a finger. And when I have that index finger, I can click, hold down my mouse button, and drag in and out to resize my circle. So one more time, I'm going to come out. I'm going to go 1.28 miles. Sounds groovy, right? So now we've got our circle, all right? In-depth explanation there of drawing a circle. I'm going to click back to my criteria tab in the upper right by clicking criteria, because remember, in Matrix, we're never, ever going to hit our back button on the browser. No bueno. So I'm going to click on the criteria tab in the upper right corner here, and how I can rest assured that Matrix knows what I'm talking about here. Notice it says map area selected in red. Okay, if I have map area selected here in red, I'm good. I know that that has remembered the little shape that I drew on the map. So the next thing, let's talk about statuses. So you saw me use earlier active and closed, right? So let's look at some of our other statuses and give just a brief thought as to why or why not you might add them. So just going from the top to the bottom, we have coming soon. I do not recommend it. Those are not official listings. That's there so that you as an agent can kind of get an idea on what's going to be coming up in the market, right? You might want to run this on your own in that subdivision just to see if there's any listings coming up soon that somebody might have started to enter, right? But on a CMA that you're going to present to a client, 100% do not recommend coming soon, because it's good information about a potential competitor, right? You might share the data with them, but because it's not necessarily, I would just say, anything can go wrong. Kind of like a pending status can go back to active for whatever reason. If it's not officially on the market yet, I just don't think that it probably needs to be in your stats. Maybe when it finally does go to active, rerun a CMA now with that new competitor in the mix, right, is what I would recommend. Actives, yes, I would recommend. Now, I have heard some people say they don't even put actives on their CMA. And again, that's fine. That's their choice. But for me, I like actives because it shows me my current competition. If I'm looking at comps for my subject property and I figure that my subject property is priced very well at $700,000, well, that's all well and good, but if my competitors, whose houses look a lot like mine, are priced at $620,000, guess who's getting the offer first? Not me. So I want to know what my competition's doing. Pending, I'm going to put them on there, because while this information may not necessarily be that important to your client, although as I just mentioned a minute or 3 ago, a pending listing can go right back to active. A pending could be potential competition at any moment of any day. So I think it's relatively informative regardless of who you are, but especially for you as the agent, I find it to be very helpful because, to use a fishing metaphor, if you cast your line into the water and you get a bite, you get a hit, you know that you cast to the proper part of the river using the proper bait at the proper depth, right? All the stars aligned. You knew what you were doing. And so you know now where that sweet spot is. So while a pending listing isn't going to show me what eventually they paid for it, right? I need to add that closed for the solds to see what they truly paid for it. What the pending listings might tell me is where is the sweet spot that offers are coming in at. Again, if I'm properly priced at $700,000, but I've been on the market for a week and a half, maybe we need to drop that because while I think that the home is worth that, the market might not bear it out, right? So pendings can tell me kind of where people are putting offers in. Hold either deals with pending offer approval, which deal with short sales, foreclosures, and the like, or they deal with temporarily off market. If there's like a small fire and so we need to kind of, do damage control, the basement flooded, we've got to fix the carpet. There are different reasons why somebody might temporarily take a listing off the market. So for the temporarily off market reason, I don't recommend it at all. And for the pending offer approval, which, as I said, are the short sales, foreclosures, what we call distressed properties, only if my listing was going to be a foreclosure listing would I bother looking in that direction. But let's kind of keep it simple. Let's say that I'm not dealing with a foreclosure listing. So for that reason, I'm going to skip hold. Withdrawn, categorically, just like coming soon, do not recommend adding this. For as many people as there are on the earth, there are 1,000,001 reasons why a listing might be withdrawn. I really don't think that there is any information whatsoever that you can get from withdrawn listings on your CMA. And if anybody has a different opinion, I would love to hear it. All right. Expireds. You might feel the same way. However, I will tell you right now, expireds might be useful in one particular scenario. Let's just say you have a seller who says, whoa, things are going for $680 in my subdivision. Great, let's list for $1,000,004. There's no competition. Someone surely will buy my home for $1,000,004. What? No, they won't. That's almost twice as much as what things are going for. There's no way. So why do listings expire? They're overpriced, typically. Okay. So if you are thinking that you might have to have a conversation with your seller about why we're not going to overprice their listing, you might add in expireds on your CMAs just to show them, hey, look here. Here's hard facts and evidence about listings expiring because they're overpriced. Look at the price of the listings that expired. Look at the price of the listings that sold. Do the math. Right now, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm recording this on August 6th, 2019. At this point in time, we are in a market that is pretty much a seller's market for the most part. So in the market that we're currently in, I do not generally think you're going to find much to give you kind of, for use of a better word, ammunition in that discussion. But maybe the next economic downturn, God, hopefully it doesn't happen soon. But, during an economic downturn or something like that, you're probably going to have more talking points that would show that. So I'm going to skip it for now. Okay. So here's what we're left with. And again, remember that 0-180 is 6 months back. It's the default. You can change that if you want to look at 30 days. Maybe you're in a really hot market, lots of sales over the last 30 days. That's all you need, right? You can kind of come up with your own mind there on how far back you want to go. To that end, let's take a look now. In the lower left corner, my number of matches, 126. Now, how did I get those 126? Remember that I put a circle around my subject property around 1.3 miles out, if I recall, somewhere in that vicinity. And I chose actives, pendings, and closeds. Okay. So let's start to think now about, looking at this number in the lower left, let's think about where we want to be. All right. How many comps do you want on your report? And again, there's no right or wrong answer. You can come up with your own answer that is right for you. I would just say, okay, now I've heard some people say, if I have 3 on a CMA, I'm good. And I had one person once tell me that their broker required them to have 20 comps. I would recommend that you go back to your broker and make sure you didn't hear wrong, because 20 comps on a CMA is enormous. That's you're going to be handing somebody a novel at the end of this procedure. All right. But what I would recommend, if I can give you any kind of guidance here, let the number of statuses you're including kind of be a guide. So if I have 3 statuses, actives, pendings, and closeds that I want, I'd like a couple of each, right, to demonstrate what I'm finding. So if I have 3 statuses checked, I might aim for, 8 to 10, somewhere in that range, just so that I have a couple from each of those statuses right? So if I know that I'm going to aim for maybe around 10 or so, do I want to thumb through all 126? No, clearly not, right? Where would I like to be? Well, I'm going to tell you, for me, I want to be around 20. Let's get down to 20, and from 20, I'll research those and pull out 10 that I like the most, right? So if I know that I'd like to hit a soft bottom here of 20 matches, is 126 enough? Because recall, I have not even put in the number of bedrooms, the year built, the bathrooms, the subdivision, right? I haven't done any of that. And I'm starting with 126. You cannot have too many, right? Because at this point forward, and when I start typing once again here in a minute or two, I'm going to be taking comps away, right? So having too many is not a problem. Having too few is definitely a problem. So if I only started perhaps with 40 matches, that's a big problem, because I guarantee the minute I tell you how many bedrooms I have, I'm going to drastically reduce that number and get down to 20 real quick. And I haven't really described my subject property very well, right? So if you ever start with too few matches, you have two methods to increase the numbers of comps that, your starting pool. Okay. One method is to go further back in the market. So as I said, I'm currently going 6 months back, 180 days. I could go out 356. Let's go a full year back. Let's go, 7 months, something like that, whatever's up to you. Or in that same vein of thought, I could also go further back, right? I could go back to my map and click on my little finger icon that hovers over the edge of the circle and draw it out a little further, maybe go up to 2 miles. Right, so those are the two methods that you can increase your starting pool. But I'm okay. Let's not spend any more time on this. Let's keep moving forward. So I've got 126 matches right now. Great. I'm going to start with the bedrooms because it's kind of in the upper right corner here. So my subject property has 5 bedrooms. I'm going to type in 5, and we went from 126 down to 42. Okay, so let me give you, I know I just said we're going to move forward, but let me give you the biggest piece of advice I could possibly give you in this entire video. The best advice that I could give you deals with finding your comps right here, right now. Okay, I use what I like to call a 3-step approach, and that is enter, look, evaluate. So I entered 5. I looked at what it did to my matches. I went from 126 down to 42. And now I evaluate. Can I tolerate taking that many matches away? I took out 2/3 of my matches just now, only by saying that my subject property has 5 bedrooms. Okay, so now I'm evaluating. Am I good with having only 42 matches at this point? And again, there's not a right or wrong answer, okay? Because I will tell you that generally speaking, the normal methodology is people will do a range, 4 to 5 bedrooms, right? Now we bounce up to 85. So I've brought in 1/3 of the 2/3 that I chopped a minute ago, okay? So here's the deal, and here's the evaluation period of this. When you do a range, all right, here's the give and take. When you do a range, you get more matches, but you have to give later on making adjustments. Okay, you can't say a 4-bedroom house is the same as a 5-bedroom house, right? You've got to make an adjustment for that later on. So again, going back to look, enter, evaluate, maybe doing adjustments is so much of a pain in the neck that you're going to be good with knocking out 2/3 of those matches, and we're definitely going to look for 5 bedrooms in our comps because I hate doing adjustments on bedrooms. That's fine, right? Remember, no wrong answer. So for you, making adjustments is too much of a pain in the neck. Chop them all down to 5 exact bedrooms in your comps. Okay? Just think about it. So the reason I say that this is the biggest piece of advice, okay, not just the way that works, but think about this. The reason I do this, and I do this after each and every single data point that I enter. 5 bedrooms, enter, look, evaluate. 4 baths, enter, look, evaluate. The reason is, if you have a list, right? I have a list, bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, year built, right? If I were to just put my head down, type all that in, type every single bit of information in, and I look up, I would pretty much guarantee you I have 0 matches. And I might have just spent 10 minutes looking for those fields, thinking about what I'm putting in, and just plowing through that data entry. When I look up and I see 0 matches, which one was it that killed me? I have no idea. I've got to go back and recreate that 10 minutes worth of work. Doesn't seem like a lot if it's just once, but if you do it all the time, 10 minutes adds up. Okay. Also, one last bit, I promise I'm going to move on here in just a second. But one other point that I want to make, especially for new agents, but even for older agents that have been in the business a while, that might be working in a new part of town that they're not used to looking into. What's the purpose of a CMA? What are you doing? You're finding nice characteristics of your subject property that you want to feature and get the top dollar for your listing because your house is much nicer in those specific areas, right? You're trying to pull out the finest things. Make sure that you have the nicest one that you can do, the solid numbers as to why you listed it what you did, right? So a lot of new agents, or again, as I said, agents who've been in the business that are maybe just working in a new part of town that they're not familiar with, sometimes those people struggle to say, I don't know what a good characteristic is in this neighborhood, right? So let me give you just a brief bit of advice on that. First of all, there's usually a helpful person, especially for you new agents in your office. Hey, my name's Sally. If you have any problems or questions, ask me, right? So ask Sally, right? Or Sue, or whoever it might be that's in your office that's real helpful. Also, of course, you can talk to your broker. Hopefully you feel that you can talk to them. Probably the best one, though, make friends with appraisers. Take one out to lunch. Find one. Make them your BFF. Okay? Because that's exactly what their job is to know these types of details. So make friends with appraisers. But maybe you're a lone wolf kind of person, or, you do your real estate at 2 a.m. when everybody else is asleep. Finally, you get some peace and do some work around the house. And you kind of want to rely on yourself. Here you go. Let the numbers do it for you. So when I was at 126 and I put in 5 bedrooms and I went down to 42, knocked out 2/3 of my potential matches. That's a pretty strong indicator that 5 is fairly unique in this neighborhood. Now, as I like to always say, you got to do the Wizard of Oz. Are you a good unique or a bad unique? So when I put in 4 to 5, remember that we went back up to 80 something. So we had 2/3. So that kind of tells me, in my opinion, that 5 bedrooms in that 1.25 miles or so radius that we're in is a good thing to have, because most people apparently have 4 or fewer maybe in that neighborhood, right? So you can kind of take a cue from what the numbers are doing to let you know if you have a fairly unique characteristic there. Okay. All right. Enough of that. Let's keep going. So I'm going to stick with 5 bedrooms. Let's put in 4 baths. I'm going to try to make this as exact as possible. We went down to 19. Okay. So again, you can see real quickly, just in bedrooms and bathrooms, how fast your comps can disappear. Okay. So you might want to do things based on the trim and, all sorts of details. Right? You want to get lost in the details. Don't, because you're going to get way far into the weeds just on the basics. Okay, so with 5 bedrooms, 4 baths, I'm at 19 matches. I've given you some ideas on things to look for, things to avoid. Like I said, don't get too far into the weeds with your details, especially since at this point, again, remembering our scenario, I'm still not at the property. So I have no idea what condition these 5 bedrooms are in, or anything like that. So I'm just going to keep it here for now. All right, I think I've talked enough about finding comps. You probably already have your own strategies. So I'm going to go ahead and go, since 19 matches is right around my 20 that I wanted to look at. Okay, so again, realize that I'm jumping ahead, right? You will spend more time kind of figuring out, prioritizing what characteristics you want to see in your subject, in your comps. So I'm going to skip ahead. I'm going to go ahead and go over to results, and I'm going to take a look at my 19 matches. So as we saw before, we have 1 active, so I will put that on. We've got 5 pending properties. One is at 1.4 million, which is very different than most of my matches. So I'm going to assume I'm going to skip that one, because I'm also taking liberties here, right? Because at this point, you would be bouncing in and out of each of these listings to see if it's a proper comp. All right. So again, just as a time-saving method, I talked enough in the first half of this. Let's kind of work forward through the rest of it. So I'm going to choose my 1 active. I'm going to choose 3 pendings. And for my solds, I'm going to kind of do a little trick here. Over to the right, I've got the closing date column. If I click closing date, we reorder oldest to newest at the bottom. That can be fine, but I'm going to actually click on closing date one more time to put my newest on top. So fresher data, of course, is always better than older data. So I'm going to take the 2 freshest listings that look like they might actually be in my range here. I'm going to pick 1 or 2 more. Okay. Just, pick the ones that you think make the most sense, right? So again, realize that I'm skipping ahead, right? All right, so now that we've got these, and once more, thinking that these might be the ones that I'm going to take with me to a listing presentation to kind of further hone in on what I think my subject property might list for. What we're now going to do, so previously, in that first 15 minutes or so, we made that stats report. And of course, I could go back and do that again on these matches as well that I've put my check marks next to. But since we've already seen it, let's look at our next report, which is the quick CMA. I'm going to go ahead and click quick CMA, and it loads as a PDF here. It's going to generate for a second. There we go. So it's similar in certain aspects to that stats button that I showed you a little while ago. So it does break out. There's the active, there's our solds, here's some pendings, okay, the ones that I specifically chose. But this isn't a more report-friendly format. So this is what I'm looking at right now. This is my PDF software. So depending on what abilities you have in your PDF software will dictate what you can do with it. So I'm in Adobe Reader, and in my version of Adobe Reader, in the upper right corner, I can reload this. Rotate it is what that arrow does. I can download it, or I can print it. Okay. So if I wanted to, I could download or print that, really. Also, to this end, especially on the closed listings, notice that we have some extra columns. So we have total days on market. We see that our average for the solds are 11 days. So on average, these listings have sold in under 2 weeks. 98.9, so let's just say 99% of asking price is achieved on average. The sold price, $728,500. So you may recall that that's different from the sold price of the close just in the subdivision, right? So we're kind of going around. Also, this column I want to point out, CC, it's labeled. That stands for closing costs, specifically paid by the seller. So I will tell you that in my experience as a seller on the market, when my agent ran this for me, 2 questions that I had for him, which prompted this report, were, George, how long should I expect to be on the market? And how much money should I be expected to bring to the table? So based on this report, I saw the full range. So one poor person had to bring $8,000 to the table. One person brought nothing. So on average, we're talking around $3,000, right? It's kind of a wide range, 0 to 8. But anyway, this is pertinent information to your seller that they might appreciate, right? How much money should I expect to bring to closing? How long should I expect to be on the market? How much of my asking price might I expect to get? So you can just say, well, obviously each unique system is different, or each unique situation, I should say, is different. But based on the last 6 months of data, we have evidence to show that this has happened. So this might be something what we expect, provided everything turns out kind of run-of-the-mill on what's been going on, right? So that's the quick CMA. So this opened in a new tab. I'm just going to X out of that tab up at the top, and we're back to our results. So that's the quick CMA. Okay, so just remember, the last point I want to reiterate there is that quick CMA is just a PDF. So it's not going to necessarily go to your client's portal. It's going to just be a PDF that you can print out, take with you, email it, download it to your computer, and then email it from your email program if that's what you want to do. Okay, so it's basically how you would treat any other PDF. Okay, so not reinventing the wheel. Let's keep our research the same, but let's just say at this point I've done the most research I can do on the subject property, including maybe having visited, maybe I had an on-site visit, and now I've seen that, hey, this person has 4 dogs, 2 chinchillas, a cat, and a turtle that have just really put the works on that house. There's nowhere possible we're going to get $730,000 for it, or whatever. So whatever the case may be, maybe it's immaculate and it's amazing, and we are going to get top dollar, right? Let's not always put a negative spin on it. But, for whatever reason, whichever way you're going to go, up or down, you've now been and you know exactly what you're going to price that house for, right? So let's talk about the final CMA that we're going to do together today. And that is using the button down at the bottom in the button bar in Matrix that just says the word CMA. Okay, this is your full-blown CMA wizard presentation, multi-page, let's get it moving report. So I'm going to go ahead and once more, I'm going to keep my check marks over to the left of my comp properties, and I'm going to click CMA, and now we come into our wizard. And wizard is a computer term in this case, indicating that it's a guided process is what a wizard means. So a guided process up here means that we have tabs from start all the way over, of course, to finish, and every spot between we're going to be going over this. So let's just start at the beginning at the start tab, and notice that there are 2 fields on the start tab: select contact name and description. If you spend some time in Matrix, you might realize that required fields are highlighted in gold. They have a gold background. Neither of these have a gold background, indicating that they are optional. You do not have to tie a contact to the CMA. You don't have to give a description, but you can if you'd like. All right, so I'll go ahead and type in a description. I'm just going to type in, this is not a real thing. I don't know, just the sentence that popped into my head. What I want to show you is that description field, what you write in here, will not be shown on your CMA. That is a private note for you that will not appear on the report. So you can type in maybe why you're doing this, information about your client, things that you need to remember about this particular CMA, this client, whatever the case may be. So as I said, I don't have to tie it to a contact. I can. And also, if it's here that you realize you don't have that contact entered yet and you want to put them in, you can click on that create a new contact. For contact management, I would say see the Matrix Basics class. Okay, but just real quickly, when you create a new contact, there's an example of those yellow fields. So when you're adding a person, first and last name and email address are required. Okay, I'll go ahead and choose one here that I've got, Jeff Bridges. So I'm going to do this one for Jeff. The next button up here, let's talk about this next one along the way. Pages. On the pages are where I can add in the pages to my report that I want to use. Now, when you first come to this screen, pretty much I would guarantee that your selected pages grid or column on the right is blank, right? You're starting with nothing. All right, and that would explain why, if you're watching my video and you've got your computer maybe on the next monitor over or something, and all of the rest of your tabs are kind of grayed out, you can't click on them, it's because all of these tabs are driven by what you've got in your report. For instance, notice that there's a CMA map report. If I did not choose to include the CMA map page, the map tab would gray out. All right. So to that end, I would encourage you to kind of research and explore what each of these pages do. You can maybe get some good practice creating a CMA that has every page in it. We'll talk about how to manage pages here in just a moment. But what I want to kind of finish talking about up here is that, as I said, certain things drive certain tabs along the top. If you find in your flow how you like your presentation to go, maybe you decide you don't want the CMA map page. Fine. That works for me. You don't like it, you don't want it, you don't need it. When you take it out, you can click on the little red X here, for instance. Notice that map grayed out. Right, when I took that out. So if a tab is gray out, if it's grayed out up here, don't panic. Don't feel like, oh, I can make it to comparables, but this next one is grayed out, so I can't finish. Oh no, just skip it. They're not numbered. You don't have to go to 1 to go to 2 to go to 3 to go to 4. You can bounce around all over the place up there if you want to. Okay, just because it's a guided process doesn't mean necessarily that it's linear. Okay, so we can kind of bounce around. All right. So I've deleted map I clicked on it and I clicked on the little red X that dropped it out, because as you can imagine, opposite of selected pages are available pages, indicating that these are pages that are not currently in my report, but they are available to add into my presentation. So on the left, let's start working on the left over here. Notice that I, for instance, have a header at the top of this column that says my custom pages, and I have one there that says my resume. Again, for those of you who are kind of following along, logged into your own account, you may not have the my resume page. You may not have my custom pages. So let's talk about that. Notice at the bottom of this grid on the left here is manage custom pages. I have managed custom pages because I already have some uploaded. If you don't have any uploaded pages yet, yours will say upload custom pages or add custom pages, something like that. So go ahead and click on that link. And this is where you can choose a file, meaning a PDF. Okay, you can choose a PDF formatted for 8.5 by 11 to upload to use in your presentations. So I'm going to go ahead and just click cancel out there. For example, your resume sounds like a perfect thing that you might upload. Maybe you've got an information sheet about your team or your brokerage. Maybe your broker has said, hey, when you go out to do a CMA, make sure you include this document. It's kind of a disclaimer, or, it's whatever. That would be a perfect example of something to upload. Okay. So how you're going to do this is you're going to open up any particular topic that you're interested in by clicking on the little plus over to the left. Conversely, a little minus will close that section. So if I want to maybe add that map page back in, I'm going to open the map section and I'm going to click CMA map. All right, I'm going to put that back in so that now my map tab goes back to being lit up. All right, so that's how you kind of kick things in. I also, showed you first by taking something out by clicking on the red X. Okay, so now my map is at the end of my report. I don't feel that that's the proper place for it. So what I can do outside of that red X is an up arrow or a down arrow as applicable. I'm going to put that back where I think it makes the most sense in my presentation. If this style of presentation, this kind of flow of pages is what I like, I can set that as my default. It saves a default set of pages in that order, because it's always going to remember the last one that you did. You may recall earlier that I mentioned about maybe you're doing some kind of horse farm or you're working up in Dawsonville, right, with larger plots of land. Well, maybe how you do a large plot of land in Dawsonville is a very different CMA than you might work up for a one-bedroom condo in Midtown. So maybe this afternoon, you're going to work up a CMA for one style of property, one particular goal. Tomorrow morning, when you come in to work a CMA for your standard MO, kind of bread and butter listing, it's going to remember that weird one that you did the day before. So then you can click Restore Defaults to go back to the way you like it. All right, and if you ever get one here that you don't like anymore, you want to completely scrap it, you have Clear in the lower right corner. Okay, so let's go to the next tab. Let's keep working forward. So the subject property. Well, remember our research that we did, and remember that third way, or the third and final place I told you that you might do research was Matrix. For the shortcut, here it is. Here's our shortcut. So we have 3 choices. The top one is type in the subject property fields manually. So as an example, remember I told you you might have a subject property that's been owned in the family for 80 years, who knows? And so this is the first time it's coming on since, remember the magic date, January 2007. Okay. If it has not been listed since January 2007, it's not going to be in our database, and you have to therefore enter those fields manually. Or if it's a new build and you're doing a CMA on a brand new home, who knows? Sounds odd to me, but I'm sure it happens. Then you're going to have to obviously put those fields in manually as well. If you don't know if the property is listed, maybe you're skipping out on my advised research that I gave you earlier, or you did that search but you forgot to write down the FMLS number, you can search for the property using the third option. Okay, but I did write down the FMLS number of that listing, so I'm going to type it in here in the second option, since that's what it's for. So I'm going to put in that FMLS number, click fill, and there's our subject property, if you recall the photo. Okay, so remember that listing was 10 years old. My goodness. Maybe they've done some upgrades. Maybe they've added a bathroom since then, right? So we're at 5 beds, 5 baths. This is where you're going to be able to make changes to the subject property. Now notice, there's the bottom of the page. There's not a lot of custom fields there. That's the entire page on one screen right there. Clearly, this is not every field you might choose to use. So for instance, if we look at the bottom, we have a section called Custom Fields. I want to show you this one because, as I'm saying, there's new stuff that maybe they've done in the last 10 years. So if I click on the arrow next to that first field under Custom Fields, I can link to a matrix field, and maybe they've put a pool in. So I'm going to add that pool features. Click OK, and notice that it says none on the right, because 10 years ago, when this listing was on the market, they didn't have a pool. Well, maybe nowadays they have an infinity pool that they put in. They're big and fancy, right? So now they have an infinity pool. I might do an infinity, label that in-ground, right? Whatever kind of verbiage I would use to describe that, I'm going to type it in. Notice there's a little link at the end of that field where it says pool features, right next to where I clicked on the arrow. That link indicates that's why the word none popped in, because it linked back to that listing 10 years ago. But not only did it link to that 10-year-old listing that I could obviously change and update the data for, but it also lets me know that when we look at my comps later on, it's going to pull that pool field for the comps as well, so that we get our full spectrum of analysis, that we can compare the fields that we want data for. Okay. Over to the right, we have the picture from the listing. But again, this is a 10-year-old photo. This was probably not my listing. Should I use this picture? No. Hopefully, again, taking my scenario here that I'm working through from the party to the listing appointment kind of thing. If I've been to the property, I might have a photo, right? So maybe I've taken a picture of this particular person's house. And I'm also going to tell you that actually you can have 2 pictures in a CMA. Generally speaking, like I said most people will do a range, especially when I demonstrated that in the bedroom field, the 4 to 5. General methodology here, most people will just put one picture of the subject property, and usually they pick that exterior front photo. It's not required, that's not mandatory, and again, the system will allow you to do 2, so let me go ahead and highlight what the system can do. So on this screen where we're talking about the features of the home, right, you might want to put that one bang out feature in the house. Okay, so this is a really nice infinity pool over the jungles of Chambly, or wherever this is. So I might put that picture in there. Same philosophy with the remarks. That's the public remarks from the 10-year-old listing. I don't need them. Okay, so I'm just going to take them out. All right, so that's just kind of thoughts and procedures on entering your subject property data if it's changed. So if you recall, the last thing I want to mention here, remember our 3 options. Had we not found this listing, right, because that's where this data came from when I fed it that listing number. So remember, I said if it's a family home that's been in the, generational family kind of thing, hasn't been listed since 2007, or it's brand new, you're still going to come to the same screen. You're not going to get a different screen. It's just that the fields will be blank, and you would have to enter each data point manually. Okay. Let's move over to cover. Cover begins with the photo that I just changed it to on that last slide. However, let's think about this. You might remember that I mentioned it can do 2 photos, right? So when we're talking about the attributes on that previous tab of the subject property, use that one bang up attribute. When I'm on the cover page, this is where I would probably argue you want to use that exterior front picture. Maybe the house looks like this now. Somebody hit the lotto, right? We did a big upgrade on this house. So this is where I can do my second picture, okay, on my cover photo. Over to the right, contact information. Notice that it does have Jeff Bridges in here because back on the Start tab, I said I'm going to do this for Jeff. So that's one thing that will happen when you link it to a client. Otherwise, this would start blank. You can fill in more information if you want to. That's up to you. Thoroughly optional. Down below, your agent information. It's going to start with the information from your My Information screen, so I can tell right now that I forgot to change my name back to Eric after I demonstrated that maybe people know me better as Bubba down there, so it still says Bubba. That's not true. People don't know me as Bubba, so what I can do is I can edit my information, or I can override it for just this one CMA. Maybe this person, I don't want them calling me Bubba right away, but yeah, once you get to know me, maybe you can call me Bubba. So maybe just for this CMA, I'll override and I'll put my name back to Eric. Okay. Also, for instance, FMLS has a P.O. box. Nobody's coming to the P.O. box to visit me, so let's take that out. And I always like to say maybe this is a CMA that you're working out for somebody that you don't know very well, and maybe they kind of give you the creeps and you haven't really felt out how you interact with them yet. Maybe you don't want to give them your phone number, right? So you can modify this just for this one CMA if you wanted to. Okay. All right, I'm going to click over to comparables. This is very quick. Very, very quick. So all this should look familiar, hopefully, to you. This is kind of where we started. And what this does is it gives me one last method that I can review my comps if I want to. So I can put a check mark over there and remove it if I decide that's not good enough. Oh, what was I thinking? I don't want that one. Or I can add more. Add from listings means basically go back to the search, do another search. Add from cart, I'm not going to go into carts at this point. That's an advanced functionality of Matrix that you can look at in the Matrix Advanced class. All right, or I can print these out if I wanted to. All right, pretty straightforward. Nothing much to talk about here. So let's flip over to the next tab, Map. Also, not a whole lot to talk about on the Map tab. Okay, a little slow to load here. There we go. Okay, just a bad day for me this morning. This map, again, not much to talk about here either. This map is what it is. I hate to use that phrase, but it's true. I cannot zoom in. I can't move the map around. This map is hard-coded to be what it is. So the problem with that kind of comes in down here. Notice that I've got 3 blue pins toward the bottom of the map. One is kind of hiding behind the other. Looks like that might be property 4, right? I think that's 4. I'm not exactly sure. I wish I could move this maybe around a little bit, zoom in to get a better idea. Well, sorry to say, you can't. Okay, and so I used the map as a possible one that maybe you just don't want to add it. I would say that some people don't like the map because, again, it's just not kind of user-friendly. It is what it is. So it's up to you whether you want to include that or not. But let's move forward. Again, can't do anything with it. Just if you like it, use it. If you don't. Okay. So I'm going to move over to adjustments. Now, as your friendly FMLS employee, I'm going to tell you, pay no attention to the numbers that I'm typing in here. I have no idea how much a bedroom is worth, or a bathroom, or anything is worth, right? Remember, that's the appraiser's job. So here's another screen where I'm going to give you the advice to make friends with an appraiser. All right. But what I will do as an FMLS employee is, as I enter numbers, I just want you to see what it does, how the system responds. So what we see here is we have the first line, 1144 Ives Court in Burnwick, 5 bedrooms, 5 baths, because I made it 5, right? It started off 4, but I said in the last 10 years, they've increased a bathroom count. Okay. So the first line, as I just got done saying, is the subject property. But what I want to say here is sometimes people spend a while, right? I was on the subject property not 10 minutes ago. So it's fairly fresh in your mind that I told you, hey, remember, back on subject, this is where you're going to enter and modify the details of the subject property. It's fairly common for people to just spend enough time between those tabs that they've forgotten. And when they come here and they notice that their bathrooms was 4, they say, oh my goodness, I forgot. And it won't let me modify the subject property here. Yeah, don't worry. It might happen to you. Don't laugh. It could happen to all of us. But just people forget, like, oh, just go back to subject and that's where you're going to be able to edit it. Okay, you don't edit it here. You edit it back on subject, and then you can come right back here to adjustments. All right, so then below our subject property, we have our comps. Okay, and what we see are the statuses, the hard-coded price, the true and actual price, and then adjusted price. Now, adjusted price hasn't moved yet because I haven't made any adjustments. But as you can suspect, as I work through my thought process here and I enter the different numbers, that adjusted price column is going to change. And that's going to affect down below our low, median, average, and high, potentially. So always the number here in this middle column of data will stay the same. It's the last column that's going to change. Okay. Now, one more thing I want to speak to the structure of this particular screen. So all of my comps are here. I've got 3 columns at a time worth of data I can scroll across at the bottom. If you can hold 3 columns worth of data on 10, 9, whatever the number is, comps over here, sir or madam, my hat is off to you. I cannot think of that much data all at once. So I want you to see that in the upper right corner on this tab is view in detail mode. If I click that, now I'm looking at the subject property and 1 comp at a time. And I can go next, previous, right, 1 at a time. So I would say most of us are more visual, and so when we see the picture of the house, we think, oh, right, no, this is where I have to do this. This is the one with the leaky basement, whatever the case may be. So I can always flip back and forth. Notice now in detail mode, I have view in single line mode in the upper right corner. So I can always flip my view back and forth. Okay? So the last thing really to talk about on this tab is let's talk about actual adjustments. So in this first column, subdivision complex, we have Burnwick is our subject properties subdivision. We have Emerald Estates is the first one here. And let's just say that I think, for example, Emerald Estates is a little nicer than Burnwick. Burnwick's a little older. Emerald Estate's a little newer, whatever the case may be, whatever my line of thought is. So if my if my comp is nicer than the subject property, the purpose of doing an adjustment is to level that playing field. So what I'm saying is, if Emerald Estates is nicer, it would be worth $30,000 less if that same house was in Burnwick. So I'm going to take $30,000 away from Emerald Estates. So what we see now is 704 becomes 674, right? Down 30,000. And again, our average now is a little different. Okay. Our median is a little different, right? So when something is nicer, you take away from it to make it look, again, the thought process is, if this property was in my subject properties subdivision, it would be worth this. Right. So to that end, I promise I'm going to keep going. My subject property is in Burnwick. Here's a comp that's also in Burnwick. Would I do an adjustment? Maybe. Okay, remember, no right or wrong answer. If all the homes in Burnwick look the same, they were all built basically in the same year, it was a big, production that year to build all those houses in that subdivision all at once, then probably I wouldn't. But some subdivisions are built in phases. Maybe a house at the front of Burnwick looks different than a house at the back of Burnwick. Could still do an adjustment. Just a thought, okay? The last thing I really want to talk about on the adjustments tab is, notice that for fields where it's a number field, so right here, bedrooms and bathrooms, right? These are number fields. We have a box at the top. I generally do not recommend using this box, but I feel it's my job as an instructor to show you what it does, and then you can make your own informed decision on whether you want to use it or not. Now, I'm going to start off by saying that the total bedrooms field isn't going to do a darn thing because these numbers are all the same. 5s across the board. Okay, but when we come to baths, all of my comps have 4 and my subject property has 5. So watch what happens. If I tell the system that I think a bathroom is worth $15,000, it's now added $15,000 in value to the comps because they all have one fewer bathroom than my subject property. Okay. So it's a nice handy shortcut if you think the bathrooms in all of those subdivisions and all of those homes are all the same amount of money. Okay. And that's where the danger comes in, especially when we're talking about things like full baths and bedrooms. A bedroom in one subdivision, I guarantee you, is not the same as a bedroom in the other. Right. So I would tell you, I would not recommend using this, but on a field like half bath, I don't think the world has ever hinged in the balance on a half bath before. So you might say, oh yeah, half bath's worth $7,500 maybe. So we can kind of make some adjustments on half baths. For instance, how fancy can one powder room be, right? It's up to you though, right? Remember, it's up to you. All right, but generally speaking, I don't recommend taking that big of a shortcut in your data. All right, so let's move on to pricing. The pricing tab, almost done here. We're within about 10 minutes of being finished. The pricing tab shows you once more the low, median, average, and high of comparables, and then also your adjusted comparables. These are the same numbers we saw in the last tab. They will appear on your report. If you make adjustments, you're going to be held responsible for explaining those adjustments to your client. Why did you do the adjustments that you did, right? You can't just do those on the sly. In the additional analysis page, notice that for me, I've got here, it says comparing the square footage of the subject property with those of the comparables suggests a price of $562,759. That's very specific. All that's doing is looking at the square footage. Okay, so something I said earlier, if we all ran a CMA the same way, why would we need so many agents, right? They all do things a little differently. They all have different ranges of success. If we were doing CMAs just on square footage, why would we have so many ways of running a CMA, right? So I say it doesn't really matter too much what this number is. Sometimes you might get here, by the way, and there's not a number there. And it'll give you something saying about how there's no available square footage. If you get here and there's no number down here, it means that one of your comps or the subject property that you added from the FMLS listing, the listing agent for either that comp or that subject property that you copied from 10 years ago like I did, they didn't put the square footage in. And so if it comes here and it doesn't have a number, what it's trying to tell you is, look, I can't divide by 0. Right? My number's off. So again, that's okay. All right. I would tell you, don't put a whole lot of stock in this number, right? That's why you're the real estate professional. All this number is doing is it's trying to kind of give you a nice starting point that says, well, looking at just the square footage, we're looking at this amount of money. But obviously you've got nicer accoutrement in the home or, whatever, that's going to bump up that price. It's not seasonal, for whatever reason. This is a celebrity home. This is the one that was on, Leave It to Beaver or whatever, who knows. So, there's obviously other pricing strategies. Now, having said that, the last thing I want to say about this number, if it does exist here, this number will not be on the report. All right. So don't feel like you have to explain why you're going to choose something different than this number. Okay, so these will be on there because you kind of touched them if you made adjustments, so you'll have to, explain your own adjustments. This number's not on there because you really did nothing to come up with that number. That's just the computer trying to be helpful to you as the pricing strategy. So, as I keep saying, these numbers will be on there. Other things that are going to be on there, suggested list price, this box. So when you're going to type in something like based on the home keys, the condition of your home, I suggest we list at 735, right? Notes. Of course, you don't have to type any note in there, but notes, suggested price, and those numbers at the top are going to be what appear on your report. Okay, that number, if one exists for the square footage, will not. All right, some people just have a panic attack when they see a number that the system comes up with. All right, so that's the pricing tab. Finish. We're pretty much done here. We're going to be done in a couple minutes. So on the Finish tab, it shows you the picture of the house. I can view that CMA as the PDF. I'll let that load. I can email it. If I email it, when I click email and I chose a client to tie this to, it's going to put that client in my to field. Okay, I don't know why my computer's a little slow. There we go. So you see his name there, Jeff Bridges, once more. But I can type in a different to field. Again, I can create a new contact if I realize on the fly right now that I didn't add them in. So I'm just going to click back to summary at the bottom. I think you probably know how to write an email at this point in your life. It shows me the pages on the left in the order that I've added them, the number of comps broken down by status and then totaled at the bottom. Okay. So if I click back over to the tab to see the CMA, there's my cover sheet with my updated exterior photo, pages that I've entered along the way. Now here's the last thing I really want to show you in this particular setup. So we have our comparison across the board here. Remember that I mentioned that the system can do up to 2 photos, but commonly agents use just 1 picture. And I said that you might put a picture of that one super nice feature of your home. Now that I've told you that you can do this, I might tell you, you know what, it's not really a good idea perhaps, because if you've got that client that really wants to desperately overprice their home, they might consistently look at this report where you're trying to convince them that we're not listing their house for $1.3 million and keep hitting their finger against this pool picture and go, but look, I've got this. Why aren't we pricing it over $1 million? Because I've got the world's greatest infinity pool. Well, Janet, it's because the rest of your house is falling down, right? But anyway, this is one reason you might not use that one really amazing picture, right? So again, this opens in its own tab. I'm just going to close out. So if you get to that PDF that you just viewed and you realize, for instance, you don't like that CMA map, or gosh, he's got a point there, let's not put that one bang out picture that we got lucky on all over the report, I can go back to the subject tab and I can change that picture back to the exterior front. I can go back to pages and take out the CMA map page, right? I'm still in the wizard, even though I made it to finish and I thought, okay, I'm done, great, wipe my hands. I still have my tabs along the top. I can go back and readdress something. So I can save this at any point. I know I didn't hit these earlier, so I can save this at any point. I can cancel out of this thing. I'm developing a migraine. Now is not the time to start a CMA. Let's cancel, right? But lastly, let's talk about some information. Okay, so if I hover over my matrix, notice that you have about halfway down my CMAs. Now that I've created the CMA, here's where it is. If maybe my client a week from now says, hey, you sent me that really cool CMA and I've totally lost it, I can click on the little down arrow to the left and click email to send it back to them. Maybe I want to just kind of brush this CMA up after about 2 weeks from now with some new comps or something. I can edit that and bring new comps into the CMA without starting over, right? I can delete this maybe a month from now, right? This property sold in 2 days. Look how fantastic it is. Do I need to keep this CMA? No, I can delete it, right? Otherwise, also under my matrix up at the top, you have contacts. So I know I pointed out 2 or 3 points during the process that you can add in a client along the way. Well, notice also I can add a client beforehand and work with one once I've got them already in the system here. All right. And the last thing I want to show you is if I hover over my matrix and go to my information, about 2/3 of the way down there or so, this screen comes up. Remember I had seen that I was known as Bubba? Well, maybe I want to change that. I can override that back to Eric, right? And this data comes from your FMLS roster. On the cover sheet is where the data went before. So if I want my CMA cover sheet to say something different, so now I've got Eric Glauner because that's what was on my information tab. But maybe when I'm doing a CMA, I want to be known as Eric, the CMA machine, Glauner, right? Whatever. But you can modify what your cover sheet says. You can change your agent photo. I know I didn't talk about this when we were looking at the cover sheet earlier, but you can update your photo there for use on your cover sheet in this particular case. Okay, so that's how you can kind of manage your custom information. So for instance, if I go back to our PowerPoint, I think we've covered everything now. We talked about researching the subject property. Remember the 3 places I told you to research. We talked extensively about creating a search that's apples to apples. We looked at the quick CMA as well as that stats. It's not on this objective slide, but we looked at the stats as well. We talked about creating the personalized cover sheet, both while I was showing you the CMA wizard and talking about your data just now a couple moments ago under the My Matrix, My Information screen on the CMA cover sheet tab. And then we talked about emailing, managing, which was going to My Matrix and then My CMAs, and we can open one up and edit it or email it, okay, along the way. So I'm going to go ahead and end this video. If you have any problems or questions, don't forget that you can call customer support at 404-255-8660, option 1. They are available Monday through Friday, 9 to 6, and Saturday, 9 to 5.